Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Digital Shop Talk webinar. My name is Tom Dorsey. I'll be hosting today along with my awesome co-panelist, Bill Connor. And we're going to be talking today about, follow-up to yesterday's radio show. We had Russ Crosby on and we talked about, it was an awesome show about how to set measurable goals, how to run effective team meetings, and today what we're going to be doing is getting into how do we actually go into our business control panel, and Bill is going to be taking us through there and how do we actually set up the tool so that we can set those goals and measure the progress towards those goals. So before we get started, if everybody could just raise your hand if you can hear me good, make sure that we've got strong audio. Perfect. Thank you, Terry. Good to see you. Anne-Marie, thank you for joining. And let's get started. So the first thing we want to talk about a little bit, for those that, maybe think about, let's talk about what else we're going to cover today because I kind of skipped a few things. We're going to talk about how to set SMART goals. And we'll talk about, kind of the goal setting process. We'll really start at the beginning. Then we'll talk about how to utilize the business control panel to set and monitor those goals. And then we'll talk about also, Russ's great takeaway about how to motivate your team and set effective team meetings where you discuss goals and achieve goals as a team together. So let's get started. The first thing we want to talk about is how do we set effective goals, right? And goals have to have some very specific criteria in them, right? They need to be specific. It has to be, what are you going to be trying to accomplish and what actions do you need to take to get there? Your goals need to be measurable, right? You have to be able to see your numbers. If you can measure it, you can fix it. And so you have to be able to track your goals. They have to be attainable, right? Excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. 1 second. Woo, okay. They have to be attainable, right? If you set, really high goals right out of the gate, people think they're never going to be able to achieve them. Excuse me. There it was. And then they're not motivated and you get less progress. And you'd be amazed if you take those big goals and you break them up into small chunks and break it down into smaller time periods, right? And then all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so hard. You just have to do it every day, right? Every week, every month. And when you do that, then all of a sudden, the unattainable is attainable. Your goals need to be relevant. You have to, if you're looking to increase your ARO, you have to set activities, and that goal has to align with whatever your broader goal is, right? If you're looking to make lots of money and retire early, well, then an ARO goal increase and a GP increase is going to be a relevant goal. And you have to put a time to it, right? It's not a goal if there is no time frame. If it's due whenever, it'll never get done. So you have to be specific on when you want to achieve these goals and work backwards. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Is you want to say, what goal do I want to achieve and when do I want to achieve it? And then you break it up by working backwards. Okay, when do I get to this milestone or this point? And when do I get to this point as we work it backwards, and then we can then implement it forwards. Okay? And so in a business context, we look at what is the goal we're trying to address. So if we're trying to increase ARO, we need to define that. It has to be very specific. So what exactly will I accomplish? Well, what will I accomplish when I increase my ARO? And to what ARO, what number am I trying to hit? Right? So if my ARO is at 400 and I want to get it to 800, I need to focus on the 800. I need to be very specific that I'm going for 800. I need to measure that. I need to be able to measure my Where am I starting at? I'm starting at 400, and then where are we going from there to reach the 800? Has to be achievable. Is $800 ARO out of the question in your market? With the services that you provide, is it, you'd have to sell everything on the menu to everybody who walks in to be able to maintain that level of an average repair order, then it's probably not achievable. We got to work our way up to it. And is it relevant? Does having a higher ARO, which auto shop, I hope it does, fit into your wider goal and what you're trying to accomplish in your business? And then, of course, when are we going to hit an $800 ARO? If we're going to go for tomorrow, it's probably not going to work out so well for us. But if we go by end of year or end of summer or something like that, we have a much better chance to get there. So I'd like to go ahead and get Bill in here, and Bill is going to go through your business control panel and talk about how to set up those goals and how to measure them so you can implement SMART goals into your process as well.
So Tom, if you would, thanks for having me here. First of all, can you verify that you can actually see my business control panel I'm working with on the screen?
I can.
Cool. So what I like to do is I like to start out by looking at a large amount of data and actually going through it quickly to understand what's going in my shop. So if I want to take a journey to increase my weekly sales or ARO, I better damn well know where I'm going to start the journey from, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So using the multi-shop, I really like to go ahead and do that. And you can see in this case, what I've done is I've stacked a whole bunch of KPIs here that are actually relevant to what I'm working on. So I've got weekly sales, and then I've come down and put ARO. And then what I've done is I've actually put the behaviors that actually will change ARO over time. So ARO in weekly sales isn't going to change immediately. It's something that takes a little bit longer, but the behaviors that actually feed into them can be changed almost overnight in some cases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure, Bill. And so let me ask you something. So when you're going through this analysis, if you're looking at that top line metric, your primary metric is average repair order. Is that correct, or was it weekly revenue? It's weekly revenue.
Yeah, my top one I look at is weekly revenue, because a lot of shops, they like that number out in front of their face all the time.
Sure.
And then weekly revenue and ARO, they kind of hand in hand, but not really. But then what I want to do is I want to understand immediately the behaviors that will actually feed or address or change them numbers over time.
And so then when you're looking at weekly revenue, then you load up the same KPIs, almost like it's your recipe for success, would you say, right? It's got the same ingredients to analyze weekly revenue every time that you go into that diagnosis.
Yep. So what I do is I've got a list of KPIs that I work with, and I actually go ahead and string them out here. And then what I do is I come up here where it says save as, and I'll save this as the shop's favorite. And that's where we start our journey out every time as we're going forward. So initially when I work with a shop, I work on increasing ARO. Then as we go a little bit further on, we work on retention topics, and then we work on acquisition. So, each thing has its place in the equation, and I like to go ahead and break it down into small chunks and where it's kind of manageable and measurable.
Sure. So can we see that one more time? So if I'm new to this and I load up your recipe here, then I just hit save as and give it a name.
Yep. You'll hit the save as button. You'll just put the name in here, what you want it to be, and then press save, and it will be saved and available for your shop next time.
Fantastic. And then I can just go, oh, I see. And then I just load it up from that little drop down right there. I pick the one I want to look at, and off I go. That's like my recipe card box or something, right?
Yep. And the great thing is you can monitor up to 50 KPIs real quickly this way, although you don't want to look at them all at the same time, but understanding what relates to the other is good. Get your list of them in here. It's really nice that if you want to add something new, you just come down to the bottom of your list and stack the next one on it, and it just gets added to the list, and then just save right over the top of, your preset.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bill.
So in this particular area, we can see a lot of information, and I don't know how much we want to get in here, but what I look for is things that are downward trending, and whether it's downward trending over a long period of time, And then by hovering over the individual employees, I can see their percentage of change. So I can see this guy's got a pretty stout ARO, but he's went ahead and over the last 30-day cycle, he's actually dropped 21%. So again, like all other places in Auto Vitals, hover over with your mouse as your friend.
Sure.
As we go down a little bit further, and what I'm always looking here for is things that really stand out that could be my number one and possibly number two items to focus on as a shop as a whole. And then I'll go ahead and left click on Insights, and what it will do is it'll leave that open and it'll let me quickly go over to another area where I can just start dissecting and see changes over time. My preference
awesome.
is
and so if you don't have if your computer's not set up to open that new tab on left click or on right click, then what you would do is that's the same as just opening a new tab.
Yep. And then what I look for when I get over in this area is whatever KPI that you actually clicked on, it's going to open on that KPI. And then I can come through here, I can see the results for the entire shop. And I like to look in 30 days daily because that's where my opportunity is going to be. If I don't have consistent all the way across the board, then I want to start understanding why. And then I might start filtering down by individual employees to see if I've got a superstar and somebody that's actually suffering a little bit. And in fact, I probably already know the answer to that because on the other screen, I could already rate them from top to bottom. So if I come back over here, again, you can see they're rated from top to bottom. So I know who my target one is right off the bat. I've got this one here that's trended down 18%, and I got this one that's not a believer yet.
That's great.
And we'll fix that.
Yes, sir.
So again, if I wanted to show them how this has an effect on ARO, I can go ahead and make sure that the KPI is turned on and see it. And I might want to add other KPIs along with it also.
So then you're looking at now, if you're looking at the individual influential KPI, then you have another kind of recipe you're going to look for to drill down into ARO, correct?
Yep. So if I'm looking to grow ARO, I want to know, are they doing inspection and sending them in? But more importantly, are they editing pictures? And if they're doing a good job on it, what is that motorist research time? And I can use this data to go ahead and actually understand how everything starts relating to each other. I can tell you that if an inspection is done properly, it's edited by the service provider, and they get it to the customer at the right time, it yields results in every case.
Yeah, that's great. Did everybody see how Bill turned down, that slide bar at the top there that shows the labels on the data points, right? And so what he did is he just set it to 0 and take all of those little colored bubbles off so you can really start to see the trend, because that's where the power in this business control panel comes from, is that these lines over time, if they're going up, it's good, as long as it's supposed to go up. And if it's going down, see it, right? And get those labels stripped out so you can see the trends more clearly. Thanks, Bill.
Sure. And when I'm working with a shop, I work at this just like I'm diagnosing a car, because that's the backbone I come from. I go ahead and look for data points first, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go ahead and graph it over time to see what happened and how I can compare things from each other. And then I'm going to go ahead and decide based on data only, not personal feelings, what I'm going to do about it, and whether it's only going to be one component, which in this case would be, a service advisor, similar to a car, one component. And now I'm going to devise some type of a test to go ahead and see, can I go ahead and increase the performance for either the entire shop or one particular employee.
Very good. Any questions on that? Go ahead, feel free to chat in your questions. You can hit that Q&A button or use the chat, whichever one you prefer, and then we'll answer those live on air.
Excellent. So, yeah, questions are always good. And then after I identify something, so I always talk about measure, manage, and motivate. So we talked about how to measure and how to use these tools to kind of manage what's going on. So how do we use them to go ahead and motivate our staff might be the next question. And that is by going ahead and setting expectations and getting their buy-in on what the goal is, why it's important, what's in it for them, more importantly, because everybody wants to know what's in it for them, and then document it. And when I document it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here in this area and I'm going to document whatever it is. If I'm working on a whole staff, I might just say, you know, I'm going to go and assign this to the implementer for the shop, and I'm going to work on a particular date that it should be done by. And in my opinion, if you're having a check-in call with me once a month, don't set the due date to the day that the next call is going to be. Set it to something about a week out so we can see some movement. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. You really want to start with a longer period of time, right? And so that you can see the direction over time, and then start to reduce your time periods to get to drill down and get deeper insight.
So if I was going to work with this particular employee on editing pictures, for example, I might come down here and say, look at the data over here for edited pictures, and I might filter by that employee, which we're going to pick on this one here just for grins. And his rate is 68%, but let's say that it was 10% or 5 or even 0. I would come in here and I'd write your current edited pictures rate is 0. Do you agree by the end of next week that you would like to have it at 5%? And then 3 weeks out, you want to have it at 10% and so on. And I would put some information in here to actually go ahead and do that for one employee. Maybe even put a note in here about what's in it for them to go ahead and do it. So, you know, editing pictures for the service advisor is, you know, faster approvals and, you know, more money in the shop's pocket and their pocket and things like that. But I would document it here, and then I would go and click add, and it would show up in that future attention. One of the reasons I like to do it this way and use a shorter date on it is that if the due date on this is maybe the middle of next week or the following week, 2 days before that, if they haven't come in here and marked it complete, what it's going to do is it's going to send them a message and me a message, or whoever their advisor is, saying that this isn't done yet. So that way everybody's aware that we've agreed to do this and it hasn't started yet. That makes sense?
Yes.
So that's how I would do a goal and a accountability for an individual employee. But now let's say that we're working on an entire staff. I would do it this way. I would prepare for a meeting. I might even go ahead and put some bookmarks in here on some great training material that we can get from the Academy as example on, you know, impactful pictures webinar. Maybe choose that whole 30-minute section or some of the pieces out of it, showing them how to do it, have them review that, and then use it for the next meeting. If I'm tracking a goal for the entire shop and I want to see some movement on it, then what I'm going to do is move over here to where it says settings. I'm going to make sure the KPI that I'm working on is in this area. And I'm going to say, you know what, we want to see change in a short period of time. So in this case, the shop right now, it's on 7 days. So their 7-day average is 27%. What that means is every day it's going to re-average it. It's going to throw out the oldest day, add the newest. If I'm working with the shop and I want to see change quickly, I might go ahead and change this from 30 days to 7. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the upper threshold, I'm going to change that goal just a touch over what this is, so that way everybody gets notified that we're trending in the right direction quickly, rather than setting a high goal that we might not see for months or so on. So it's really important to let everybody have them quick wins as they go along the way, that again, everybody agrees to do it. There's a reason why it gets done. There's an actual number chosen for accountability, and then a way to actually get an alert when you're going in the right direction. I like to go ahead and set up for mini wins.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And so a way to think about that is when you're trying to influence change, right? You are looking to start the needle moving. You want your intervals to be shorter. When you're maintaining a position, once you're at goal or you've achieved an area in that key performance indicator, then you can set it for a longer interval, right?
Yep.
Because you're just looking to make sure that you're maintaining that spot. But you want a short interval when you're looking to see if what you just had in that Friday team meeting is actually sticking and they're starting to implement what you've asked.
Yep, that area of focus is what we want to have short-term measurements on. We want to get notified instantly when we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And again, in the future, after you obtain them goals, then what we want to do is set a lower threshold. So if you start backpedaling, which we all know when things are going well, people start to get off the program, and we want to be notified automatically rather than having to wait for the next meeting to come up to accidentally discover it.
Yeah. So for all you day traders out there, that's like your stop loss, right? You want to set that level so you don't drop too much.
Yep. So any other topics that you'd like to go ahead and cover here, Tom?
Yeah, sure. So I thought, I thought it was great when if you could go back to the activity screen on when you were showing the KPI, the BCP graph there, and you were building out the tasks for individuals. You said something profound about prepping your team meeting. Can you go into that a little bit more? How you can use this tool to prepare for your weekly team meetings?
So a lot of time, if I'm doing a team meeting myself, what I want to do is I want to do it using a live graph here. So I might come in here and say, look, we're going to be working on certain things as an entire shop. And I'm going to come over here and actually change back to ARO just because that's where we started out. And I'm going to come on here and I'm going to turn on edited pictures and motorist research time. And one of the things I see suffer a lot in some shops is the number of recommended actions. So I might put something there for the technician and service writer and actually pull up the entire shop for discussion. And I might have this ready for a meeting so I can actually have the data available based on the KPIs that I want them to work on, and basically use this data, and I'll talk with them just like I'm diagnosing a vehicle. Look, this is what we're working on. This is what I see that's actually hindering our performance in our shop, and this is what we're going to work on. So I might go ahead and choose something like this, and then I might actually go ahead and right click on this tab and duplicate it, and I might go ahead and define something based on them same KPIs specifically for my superstar employees who's doing a really great job doing something, so I can switch over and say, look, this is what's possible when you actually follow the program and do what needs to be done. I would never in a meeting go ahead and show the guy that needs help. I always like to focus on the superstar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure, of course. And no, that's great advice, and I think, and so let's say you see and you're going through your business control panel, your alerts have gone off, and you're going to prep a team meeting for Friday. And so the topic's going to be, how do we increase our average motorist research time? So then you had said you would go into help.autovitals and find supporting information, right? You could find some in the training academy, find some videos on how to increase motorist research time, maybe best practices to create a script, those kind of things. And then you could pull those links and just put them right into that, into your business control panel there as you're building out the notes for your meeting, and have all of the collateral, all the information that you want to cover, not just the results, but also the supporting and training documentation all in one place.
Yep. So here's one way that I do it. We get into the motorist research time is low and ARO is improving. We'll come down here and grab the 30-minute recording for impactful pictures, for example. That works on specifically getting everybody to work together as a team. I will go ahead and copy that, and I'll come over here and assign it to the implementer for the shop and a due date, and I'll paste it right in here. And how I'd like to do this is I like to get that recording to every employee in the shop, front of the house, back of the shop, have them review that recording so that way when they show up for a meeting, they know what the topic's going to be and they can be prepared in advance. Say, review this, make sure you do it before our next meeting date. What we're going to do is everybody needs to come to that meeting with something out of that recording that they think will go ahead and help themselves and the shop for an open topic discussion.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, because, and Russ yesterday on radio was saying that he thinks, one of the ways that he really got his team motivated to participate, other than his awesome idea that he had his book club, right? I thought that was brilliant. But, and that was to get the team involved and have them give some insight on the topics that they want to discuss, right? Where do they need help? But also you get an understanding of what does the team think is the root, right, of the root cause or the problem. And it's a really interesting perspective, because your data might be saying something else. Your gut might be telling you something else. But if the team is saying something else, you need to take that into consideration. And I thought that was a really good point that Russ had, is to get the team's involvement to pick some of those weekly team meeting topics so you see where you are from an alignment perspective.
Sure. And so that's 100%. And like I said, I know a lot of people won't agree with me saying that I'm normal, but I'm a normal person. I don't like to be told to do something. But if I'm shown a bunch of information and then ask, how would you do this to go ahead and help yourself or somebody else, and I participate in that conversation, then I own it. And then I move forward. But if I'm told to do something, I promise you, I'm like a mule. I'm going to turn and walk in the other direction. So, giving them good information to work with, and then asking them for their opinion on what they see there that could be helpful to them, then it's their idea, and it's a great way to think about doing it.
Awesome. So we got some questions from the audience. The first one is how many goals is too many to assign to a single person, right? Can you overdo it?
Yep. So 1 to 2 solid goals documented on what, when, where, and why in the time range is all I would work on at one time. So 1 main and 1 secondary. And anything more than that is just going to be confusion. So always identify the 1 or 2 things that's going to help either the entire shop or that individual person. And I like working on individual people also, because everybody in your shop is going to be at a different place along the journey. So you can have a goal for the shop, but we should be also working with our employees to better, their position in life also.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you can only, what you want to be able to do is, follow that SMART outline, right? And they have to be, relevant and timely and all of those good goal setting criteria, but it's close to the root, right? As it drill down as far as possible to what behavior can that technician or service advisor adopt, or yourself, your business even, that's going to be the most relevant, right? And so it's something that I'm going to be able to act on every day, so it stays top of mind and I'm building a habit. But also, when I move the needle on that goal, it influences all the other goals, or all the other actions or activities that I may be able to, that are also influential to that top level goal. But it also influences them, if that makes sense.
It does. So one of the things I've actually got a lot of shop owners that started implementing their shop is they'll have their shop meeting on what the whole shop is working on. And then on each one of their service riders, terminals, and technicians' tablet, they actually have the business control panel on it, dialed up with the specific KPIs that person is actually working on. And every time they're, playing grab butt with somebody or smoking a cigarette or whatever, they refer them back to this, that, look, you've agreed to do this. Go look at that and see how you're progressing, and let's see if we can't find something to go ahead and help you get their goals. So they're actually using the tool in a little bit different way than others are, but it's been pretty successful for them.
Yeah. And Russ had a great point to that, right? He said for right now, he's got a whiteboard, right, where they pick up their their parts. And so as soon as you go to that parts shelf, there's a whiteboard with where they are in relation to their goals. So it's a great way for them to see it and remind them in something that they do all day, right? So it stays top of mind.
Whiteboards are actually great, but what I like is actually using a live business control panel, because it's updated every day and you don't have to erase and re-record, so to say. So anyways, just a different way to do things.
Yeah, he said he's going to put he's remodeling. So ultimately he's going to have monitors up there, but for right now they got a whiteboard at the part shelf. A couple more questions in from the audience. Talking about setting goals for the staff. How do you set priorities on those goals? So if you got a couple goals, which one takes the priority? Do you set that for them, or do you leave it up to them to figure out which one they should prioritize?
So for me, what I do is I have a discussion with them people, so that way or anybody, and make sure I have an alignment on what's the number 1 and number 2 priority and why. And then I will go ahead in this area here, because they'll both get obtained at a different point, I might go ahead and assign it to a particular employee, and then I'm going to choose the specific KPI that they're working on, and I'm going to choose the number 1 and 2 and put 2 separate notes here because they're going to probably get obtained at different times.
Yeah.
But I would never do more than 2.
Yeah.
Ideally, 1 solid focus would be great, but if you got to go as deep as 2, that's fine, but I would never go more than that.
Yeah. And that's kind of how we, talk about our best practices, right? We say, okay, to get your ARO up, hey, the tech needs to first focus on taking, a minimum number of pictures, right? Implementing a picture policy, because we know that if they're taking good pictures, right, zoom and lighting and number of pictures, then that gives the service advisor a lot to work with, and then the ARO increases. And same for the service writer. We say, well, they should edit those pictures to increase motorist research time, and it's not just put any arrow or any circle. It's really solid edits and good notes. And when they do that, then along with having lots of pictures that the tech gave them, that's kind of the recipe for success to get that ARO and motorist research time up. Or I should say motorist research time, which then leads to that ARO. So instead of just setting a goal for the tech that says you need to increase your ARO, you set a goal that says you need to take more pictures.
Yep, behaviors are important. And the other thing I'd like to point out is when you're looking at this thing, pay attention to these valleys here. So if you got a lot of peaks and valleys and inconsistency, I can promise when you start mining for gold, the money's going to be found in these valleys.
Yeah, that's a great point. Gold. I watch Gold Rush. Gold to the bottom. Got a great question also again from can techs see what their goals are on their tablet?
Yes, and the way I like to go ahead and do that is I like to have the implementer for the shop log into the Gmail account for the shop on the tablet, so that way the technician never has a password. Same way for the service writers in a lot of cases. And then I will go in there and I'll type tcp.autovitals.com, and I'll pull it right up in the Safari browser and bookmark it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. That sounds pretty straightforward. Do the techs have access to the business control panel?
If you want them to, you can go ahead and use that process, log into the Gmail on their tablet and do that. And I believe in sharing all the data with all the employees at all times. We're a team, we work together. On the technician's tablet, I would go ahead and help them set it up. I would go ahead and work on the KPIs they're working on, come in and set it for that individual tech on their tablet. Choose a couple things they're working on, identify the KPIs for them, and then set it, and then they've got it to work on. And when you change next week, when they obtain their goals, set it up a little bit higher, then keep working from there.
Yeah, that's good. It might be that might be a feature. I wonder if Carlo's in the audience. That might be a good feature request. It would be it'd be neat to have like a banner on the tablet that's got the goals and leaderboard kind of thing on there. Just spitballing. Put in your feature request now.
That's how this stuff starts.
Carlo is in here.
That's how this stuff starts.
Yeah, thanks, Carlo. Carlo said he is in here, and he noted. So, because if we can, I think that's anyway. We're out of time. We can beat that one to death forever. Why don't you go ahead and kick screen share back to me? Before we do that, is there any other questions? It was awesome. We started getting a bunch of questions towards the end. Wish I had another half an hour. Is there any questions also? Oh, a lot of thank yous, Bill. Great job, as always. Let me get my screen shared up.
Well, if I find a button here somewhere.
I think I got it.
Yeah, if you would just drag it back for me. Perfect.
There we go.
You get me talking, I hard to get to me to relinquish.
Yeah. Okay, so if there's no other questions, what am I doing? I'm going crazy through the slides. Thanks for your time, and I hope it was beneficial for you. I hope you learned a lot. Tune in again next Wednesday for the next episode of Digital Shop Talk Radio. We've got a Oh, we're going to be doing impactful pictures. So we're going to be talking about how to help those techs take great pictures. We were out doing a lot of workshops over the last couple weeks, and boy, when we got onto the how to take good pictures topic, it was just great conversation. So we figured we needed to bring it to the audience here and make it a Digital Shop Talk Radio topic for next week. So Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, we'll do a follow-up webinar on Thursday on how to actually implement those best practices for picture taking and help those techs set up the service advisors for success. So until then, get out there and make some money. Continue that discussion on Facebook. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions, both on today's topic of setting goals and effective team meetings. And we'd also love to hear any ideas you have for upcoming episodes, help you guys out, and give you some good tips and tricks to be successful as a digital shop. Thanks again, Bill. Thank you, Nima, for setting this up and moderating for us. Really appreciate it. Until next week, go make some money. Thank you very much.
And thanks for inviting me back.
Yes, sir. Always. Thanks for coming back.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, you